Hi everybody, my name is James Simpson from Copper Candle, and I'm giving you another product review. This time we're looking at the Clay Paky Arolla Aqua. This product by Clay Paky is the latest in this next generation IP66 range of fixtures designed around their LED engine. This particular fixture is the second of 4 fixtures in its product line. There is one that's slightly bigger than it, which is slightly more powerful. It's about 1,000 watts, whereas this is only 700 watts. There are 2 smaller versions as well, which are better for more compact productions where you might need to squeeze something inside a pre-rig truss or into a club or DJ sort of environment. But this product is designed purely for sort of large-scale theatre and working in arena-sized venues. It has a big punch, as we're about to see. It has a full-packed range of features which we can play with, and it has some of the best optics I've ever seen in a lighting fixture. And in this review, I'm going to take you through all of this. So let's get started. So to start off with, we're going to look at the dimmer curve on this fixture. When I say curve, I'm removing it with my finger, so don't expect anything too exciting. But we should be able to see the 16-bit dimming that it uses. It's actually a bit more clever than that. It's actually a 32-bit dimmer. But what it's actually doing is it's doing 16 bits, which is 8-bit and 8 bits, to make up whatever that 16,500 or something bits of data is. But it's actually using a little bit of an algorithm to interpolate between them, so you get the impression of a 32-bit fade. That means you're getting hundreds of thousands of steps in that LED. That is pretty awesome, and let me show you. Right at the bottom end of this, if I start to bring this in, there's a very, very faint glow. I'm at 3% at the moment. And you can see as well that as it's coming in, the colour is staying consistently white. There's no shift at all. It's not going warmer or darker, or cooler rather. I've got to take it a little bit faster now, up to full intensity. That is now at 25%. It's at 40%. You can see where this is going, can't you? It's already getting bright. That's at 65%. I'm just dragging my finger across the mouse pad, which is why it's going in chunks. And oh, there we go, 100%. So it's a really, really beautiful dimming system. All of that intensity is coming up from 0. When you dim it down, you kind of get that idea that you sometimes experience with tungsten, where it's gone so dark you think you've lost it, and then your eyes start to adjust and you just see a little glow again. You can do that with this fixture because it can go right the way down to 0. You just can't tell at those bottom levels where it's stepping off to turn off. Back in the old days, LEDs would get to about 2-3% and then they were just off. But the way PWM works, that's the only way to make it turn off or to dim. But they've managed to crack that with this fixture, which is pretty cool. What you can also do is change all the PWM settings in it as well. So you can do that through the personality on the desk. You could do it on the fixture. You could do it via the web interface, or whatever you feel like you need. You can manipulate the PWM settings, pulse width modulation, so that you can get the refresh rate of the LEDs to match up with your cameras for a studio environment. Little details like that, really useful. I mean, you have to go back to the light if you want to change it, if you've got problems with your camera end. Let's have a look now at the optics. The optics are my favourite part of this fixture. It's not like they do anything special. It's just when you really look at them closely, you can see something really lovely. So it's at 50% zoom at the moment. If I take it all the way out, you see it's completely filling up my rather printy psych. Now it's a 55 degree zoom range. Comes all the way down. Other way. It's a nice spot. We'll find it's actually quite hard to focus it in at this, particularly when it's got a go-go in, as we'll come to in a second. Just sort of trying to find it. There it is. Get it nice and sharp. Something like that. Now, we have noticed that in certain situations when the iris is in, you can just sort of start to see it glowing around the edge. So I'm just going to pull the iris in very slightly, and you can see how quickly it has an effect. So that was at 75%, that's actually not too bad, but given that it's in full sharp, the iris is just dimming the edges there at sort of the 80 to 100% range. So that's an indication that actually the iris is packed in very tight. Put it on pulse by accident. So the iris is in very tight inside this fixture, which makes it evidence it's quite a compact unit. They put so much technology and so much power and features into such a small body that there's going to have to be some push and some shove inside that optical plane, and things like that sort of become evident that the iris is literally just touching the edges of the optical field. It's not a problem, it's just an observation. Let's go back out to 50% zoom now that we're focused in. And you can see that it does quite a good job of edge tracking, focus tracking, so it sort of stays relatively sharp. You do lose it for a little bit. Go back into narrow again, and let's go back out. And you can compensate for this by programming it into a series of cues. You just put a cue in the middle that just pulls that focus in and out again so that it can stay sharp on the edge. So now we've got it slightly further out. You can see at the moment we're currently on the blue edge. I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera. The blue edge of the focus. If we zoom it out, sorry, if you take the focus out slightly, we can soften it up. The picture does have diffusion filters, which we'll look at in a bit. There, the other direction, got the brown edge. Someone's going to correct me on that. Probably got it the wrong way around. Back to the blue edge. And now we're going to try and look at some of the gobos. Now there's two gobo wheels. One is rotating and one is static. Now if you're using any of the Aqua range, you can change modules. So you can replace, for instance, the shutter component with another rotating gobo component. So it's very similar to the ETC Revolution that you could plug and play. It's not really ideal for this fixture because it already has two gobo wheels and a shutter module. But for the smaller fixture, the one that comes just underneath it, which is a bit more compact, you might want to choose to have two gobo wheels and lose the shutter module, or vice versa. So that's a really interesting feature that they designed into this product, which I haven't seen in anything else recently. So first of all, we're going to look at, I think this is the static gobo. Now I'll put it in while the edge is in focus, and you can see that we've lost it. So we're going to have to pull the focus back. Here it comes, right down the other end of the optical field. And there's our dots. Now if we try zooming this back in again, it is very common at this sort of range for a fixture not to be able to find its sharp focus. Gobos just struggle to do it. That's not a failing of this product, it's just the physics of every product. So there is a point where it will come into focus. Let's just zoom back out again, see if we can find it. So we're at 70%. Let's just try that. There we go. That's a perfectly sharp gobo. Let's just try going a little bit smaller. Let's see how far we can push it before we really lose the edge focus. Still got it there at 75%. Coming in now to nearly 80. Still got it. And we go to 87%, I think. Oh, yep, it's just there still. That is still sharp. So that is 87%. So that's about 9 or 10 degrees. I'll go up to 90%. I think I'm going to struggle here. Come on. Oh, it's really close, but it's just not quite there. So 90%, that is where the zoom is at its limits with trying to make a gobo sharp, certainly for the first gobo wheel anyway. Now if we zoom out, we'll see how that focus tracks. Not very well at all. Again, that's not uncommon. It's not about the Aqua, that's just how it is. So now I'm going to put it into the sharp focus, or try to. So something that we noticed when reviewing this, and I'm going to come out here closer, is that we have dots. This is still just around here that we don't have in the middle. It's it's very difficult to get the whole gobo fill into sharp focus. Generally it's either the middle or the edges or one side or the other. The same thing happens with the shutters as well, which we'll come to in a bit. Let's just zoom it in a bit more. Go back to about 50%. Just so we've got a bit more of it on the cloth. Actually, I'm just going to zoom it out so we're filling up our cloth. There we go. It's very difficult doing this on the laptop. Although I am really enjoying the lighting software that I'm using, but I'm not going to tell you what because it's not a product review for them. So that is a couple of examples of where you can see the very outer edge is just a bit more blurred than the centre. And it's really obvious with this one here. We've got a lot of bleed on the edge, but the middle is quite sharp. So that's the only time the optics really start to let us down. And we did work out this is where we think, and you might remember me mentioning this a minute ago, where the iris is probably just touching the edge. If I start to move the iris, it's actually shifting all of the dots a bit. So it's just, it could be that's causing it to interfere. Got it pulsing again. So let's step through some of the gobos now. Let's have a look at what the different gobos are. Let's go to 1, we've got gobo 2, is your classic ring. I'll have to zoom it in a bit more. And a little bit of sharpen. There we go. Gobo 3. Gobo 4, Gobo 5, Gobo 6, Gobo 7, and Gobo 8. Now what is slightly annoying about this is that this is the fixed gobo well. Now take, for instance, where are we? This gobo. It's at 45 degrees and you can't index it, so it's completely useless to everybody. Now, there's nothing wrong with this gobo in the rotating gobo wheel, but where it is, fairly useless to us. So I have suggested that one of the first things I would do if I got it is just swap the gobos around. I think all the gobos are great, they're just in the wrong wheels. Let's go and have a look at the other gobo wheel. So go to gobo wheel 2. Now this one does have indexing. So let's just flick through these. Gobo 1. And now you see we're going to have to focus it in again. Find it. Okay, and I'm going to put this into a spin straight away so that we can see how well this works. There we go. So one thing, if you're being very picky, that you've noticed, is that this circle, which is right in the centre, is spinning very slightly off of its centre. It's not quite in the centre now. That could just be, you know, a little bit of perfectionist in me wanting to shift that gobo in the wheel to make sure it's sitting in the slot correctly. But still, it's a really nice gobo, that, very useful. Gobo 2, don't know what you'd use that for, probably for a beam effect. Not sort of lighting I do though, so I wouldn't know. Oh, gone too far. Another dot. There's a dot in the other wheel, which is static, and a dot's in the rotating gobo, which isn't. There is a use for this, we discovered, but I would question whether or not that's a good use of a slot for your gobos to have a duplicate. Another classic beam look. Another classic beam look. So far, not really making the use of the indexing. No, if you want to index something into, you know, around a set or around a position. And the, is it called Lobo? Another classic. And a breakup. bit too big for me, but it's a useful gobo. Again, I'd have put this in the static wheel because I think it'd be really useful to have in a breakup with lots of fixtures all, jumbling together. I don't really see the point of it in the rotating wheel. Not when you've only got one rotating wheel to use anyway. Now where this gets interesting, let's go back to our dots. Find it. There we go. Now we've got the dots rotating. What happens if you bring the dots in on the other wheel? And by changing the focus, ooh, that's pretty. We can start to create all sorts of weird and wonderful things. All I'm doing is moving the focus at the moment. And that's created like an animation wheel effect, and we haven't even got to the animation wheel yet. And this is what I mean by this fixture having such brilliant optics. I found that when we were testing this, just sliding the focus around was the most interesting thing. And that was the parameter we were using the most. Just playing with that lens to just do magical things with light. That is extremely exciting from a lighting designer's point of view, to think that you have really flexible control over your fixture because of the lens and how good the optics are. So I can take it all the way one way, I go right out, got sort of two rotating gobo wells there, really, that's what it looks like. And I'm going to pull it all the way back, the other way. It just keeps going, it just keeps giving. Every time I pull it, it just does something else. Look, you've got like a cloud look now. That looks like a projection, not coming from a gobo. Almost seeing like a pattern on it. Right, what about if we change that to, we keep the dots, but we'll keep the dots in the static wheel, but in the rotating wheel, we're going to go to our Lomo. Somebody's going to correct me on that as well. Looking forward to seeing all the comments, good and bad. All right, moving this one around. So that's filling out in focus. And now I'm going to pull the focus in. Bear in mind, it's only rotating very, very slowly here, but it's giving, again, a really wide range of looks. So we've kind of lost the static gobo now, we've just got the rotating gobo. But if we keep pulling out, we start to see those dots moving in concentric circles. It's just doing something magical with the optics. And it seems to be getting faster. I'm not indexing it faster. That's the magic of the optics, doing something really weird. If I had any scientific understanding of what that was, I'd probably use a better word than weird, but that's what it feels like. So now it's slowing down, and I'm not changing the indexing speed, I'm just changing the focus. What is going on? It's amazing. I love it. And I could spend all day doing this. I could take you through all of the individual gobos, mixing them with all the other gobos, and the iris, and the shutter, and some colours, and you can start to see all the magical things you can create. The only way of knowing what all these things are is to get hold of one and just sit there playing with it for a few days and just making palettes of all of these weird looks. If somebody did that and wants to publish it on a Grand May profile or something, that would probably save a lot of people a lot of trouble. There's definitely a job there for someone to make a library of these. Not me, Bagsy. I'm happy just doing the reviews. So that is the gobos. Let's move off of gobos now. We're going to move to the shutter. If I can find it, it's been... Okay, so your 4 shutters, oops, still got gobos going. Okay, so your 4 shutters, you've got them in 4 planes, 4 fields. So 4 plane shutters are slightly different from 2 planes because a 2 plane shutter would have 2 that hit each other like this in one direction and 2 that hit each other in the other direction like this. 4 plane shutters don't. They go over each other in each direction. Nothing clashes. This is good things and bad things about this. The bad thing about it is that you've got twice the depth because you're trying to layer 4 shutter blades on top of each other, not 2. So rather than having 2 pieces of metal's depth, you get 4. Now sometimes they try to get around this by sort of dovetailing them into weird shapes so that it's always in the focal plane in the center, so when they come in, they sort of come in like this, and the middle is always the bit that's in focus. The 4 plane shutters, when they're laid out in the way that they are in the Clay Paky Arolla Aqua, they are just 4 deep. This means that the one at the top is in a different focal plane to the one at the bottom. That isn't easy to get into focus if you want to do something sharp, but it comes with something useful, and that is what they call 4-blade movement, I think. Basically, the blade goes from one side to the other side entirely without interruption. Now, that isn't always the case with a 4-framing shutter. You usually get the negatives about the benefits, but watch this. I'm going to bring it in slightly and then I'm going to get it in focus just so we can see it nice and clearly. Go to my focus. Get it nice and sharp. There we are. Now, look at that. Perfectly straight, no bending at all. I can literally hold the spin level from here to the centre and there will be no bending at all. The only thing you'll see, a lot if you are seeing one, is the cloth being a little bit uneven where it's hanging. And it's sharp all the way across as well. Again, the optic's doing all of its job it's meant to be doing there, making sure that's sharp right from one end to the other. Now let's try moving it a little bit further. So I'm at 31% at the moment. So I'll go out, nice and sharp, right to the edge. You can just sort of see it starting to cut in. And I'm going to go across, 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 across. We'd normally get to about here and it would stop, but I'm only at 53%. What's going to happen? Oh, look at that. It just keeps going. And it keeps going right up until the light's all gone. I love it. Now, you have noticed there, if we get to the top, there's a slight bowing now. You know, there's always a compromise. You just can't beat physics. But we've now got a little bit of blur and a little bit of bending in the shutter, which we lose as it's coming out. Now, I think if you were trying to do something like a Miss Saigon style sunset or sunrise with this, you could probably account for that with some clever cueing of the focus to make sure that it follows it. But I just think that's bloody awful. Right. Now let's go for the second one, coming from the other direction. Frame shutter 2, coming from this side. And you can see now that we've got our focus issue. Let's pull this one down a bit. So we've got frame 1 is sharp, frame 2 is definitely not sharp. Let's pull in frame 3. Somewhere in the middle is not perfectly sharp, it's not as bad as framing shutter 2. And let's find framing shutter 4. Somewhere between the worst and the second to worst. So it seems to go shutter 1, best, then it's shutter 3, then shutter 4, then shutter 2, 2 being the worst. Obviously, if I change the focus, we can move which one of these is sharp at the expense of the others. Now that is, as I say, a compromise of having 4 planes of shuttering. But you do get that benefit of being able to go all the way across. And you know, if you're going to just frost it out slightly anyway, doesn't matter. Be up to you based on whatever your need is, really. Like most shuttering systems, you know, you've got all the normal index, not indexing, rotation. It's a rotation on the blade, so the blade gets pushed out and then it rotates here, as opposed to 2 poles that push it like this. So you can sort of get in and you can rotate it round, but it does sort of pull it back down a bit in each direction. Let's pull that out. You see, at the moment I've got the position completely out, but the rotation's in and it's shuttering it off. So you have to make sure that the rotation is back to 50% to get your full width of the beam. If I start rotating, it just starts cutting in straight away. Even though I haven't pulled it into the plane, it's just the rotation. Now, while we've got it in the framing shutters, let's have a look at the frost, because this is probably where you'd want to use them. You've got 2 frosts, and they both do different jobs. One is more for softening up a full beam, and the other is for softening up a some sort of framing shutter or a gobo or the iris. So if I put in the first frost, you see it's just works a bit like, is it a 119 frost? It just softens the edge. It's probably a bit too heavy, but you know, we can live with that if it needs to. But I would say that there is no in between. There's no, you know, sort of 50% frost. It's basically in or out. In the bit in between, if I put it at 50%, we've got quite a distinct hard edge, which is just slightly dimmer than the rest, with a bit of flare. It's not very pretty. Let's take that out. Let's have a look instead at the second frost. You see, this is much heavier. By the time we've frosted that out, there's no definition at all of the shuttering. It's gone entirely. And just like the first frame, first frost, at 50%, all it's doing is creating just loads of flare. It's not actually frosting the beam at all. So again, not much use for softening up your edges, but it would be useful for making a full frame, sort of full open beam, just a little bit softer, a little bit wider, and nicer on the faces. And it's actually quite nice. It's not, it's a very nice even beam. Okay, it's taking all our frames out now. We're going to look next at the prism. Prism's nothing special as far as prisms go. I mean, it's a nice prism. It does the job more than, you know, as well as any other. The difference over the prism here is that I think it's quite common now. It's a 4-facet prism. So there's 4 different edges on it. And that means that there's slightly more beams coming out of it. And again, if you start to mix this all up with the gobos, let's stick a gobo in. Again, we'll go back for our dots. And let's do a bit of focusy. Slightly out of focus maybe. And now I'm going to set the prism to spin like this. No, that's the position. I'll just move the animation wheel. Spin. There we go. Oh, that's too fast. So you can have a bit of fun with that. Let's just try moving the focus around again, just to demonstrate that this rule of the Aqua still applies, which is that you can just pull around that focus to create all sorts of fun looks and shapes. Like little worms having a party. There we go. Prism you can index, or you can have it rotate. But nothing more to report really, other than the fact that it does what a prism does. Let's take out the gobo. And finally, before we get to the colour, let's look at the animation wheel. So we're just going to bring that animation wheel into focus. There we go. And now if we bring it in and out of the focal plane, you can literally see the wheel moving in and out. Now obviously you have to get it in there somehow, and you might want to do that cleverly with a cue, but I don't see the point of that as a feature. It's just, for me, it wants to be in or out. Let's give it some spin. Start to see what it does. Very fast. Let's slow it down. Now, if we start taking this out of focus again, we can have some fun with the gobo wheel. So this is just moving the focus on the actual animation wheel. We'll go back to our dots again, and you can see we've again created some really interesting looks. So let's just go through this focal system here. That's almost all the way out. We've got like a water effect. Annoyingly, because the animation wheel is fixed in one plane, it's a horizontal, not vertical, you can't actually get like a fire going upright. So water only, people, no fire. and we go the other way, we can start to see the animation wheel going through the gobo. Keep going past it, and we've got kind of a bold break-up look there. So that's the animation wheel. Very good. Right. Last but not least, let's take all this out. Right, now let's have a look at some colour. Let's look at colour. I'm going to put it into a sharp focus to make sure that we're seeing exactly what the colour is doing across the entire beam. So we go nice and sharp. There we go, sharp as I can get it with this mouse pad. And now let's have a look at the colour. So you've got 3 colour wheels, a CTO, and a colour wheel. By colour wheel, I mean to say you've got CMY as colour flags. Now, they look like they're coming in as a graduated thing, but they're actually sort of doors that close inside the frame of the light. The reason I mention that is because it's so subtle the way this moves. This is one of the other parts of the fixture that uses a 32-bit dimming. So if I bring the cyan in, it's very, very soft, very subtle. Now, just about here, I'm probably seeing it, you might not be, because at this point, you know, let's hit my little GoPro, might be struggling to catch the edges. Let's keep going. You don't have it anymore. Now that is a nice, even side. And even when it was coming in, there wasn't like a cooler gap in the middle where the doors were still closing. So you think about it, you know, on this there, the doors are just these massive things that are closing here. There should be a gap of light, but there isn't. It's working very well with very good optics. Now let's look at the magenta. The magenta flag is classically Clay Paky, goes incredibly deep, deep magenta. It's almost purple, which means that you can get that really good Congo. So let's bring in the cyan. There we go. It's just got a really nice redness to it in the magenta flag, which gives you that really good Congo, which Clay Paky is famous for. And we have the yellow. Again, nice and saturated. If we mix it with the green, also with the cyan, we get a really good green. If you like that sort of thing, it's very luminous. And if you mix it with the magenta, because the magenta flag is so deep, you get a really good red. And that red is also available in the colour wheel. Now the CTO, oh, I've still got the yellow in. Now my CTO, we do have options here to choose what CTA setting we want. You might say, I want it to be at 5,700 Kelvin, and it will find it for you. I think that you wouldn't want to use this for lighting a person. This is purely a studio thing. If you needed to match it to the camera, that's when you might want to bring in the CTO. Otherwise, you can get a really nice facial color when we're testing it on a stage. It looked really good on the face with just a little bit of magenta and cyan sort of working together. The color wheel is very good. That's the red. It's nice and deep and crisp. The blue is literally popping. Luminous green. These are all just slightly more vibrant versions of the ones you can get from the colour wheel. And that's the Congo blue. So those are your colours. Now, one thing that is notable, and I can't demonstrate this without building some cues, but you've got, very thoughtfully, red on one side of open white, and I'll go to the other end, the Congo blue on the other side of open white, which means that you can do a UV storm or a red storm very easily by flicking that colour wheel in and out. There is also a way of doing sort of split gels. Don't know why you'd want to do that. And you can index them as well. So if you want to put one in a very particular place, you can do. So a bit of fun with that as well. And again, you can mix that in with your gobos and do your clever, stuff with the focus wheel again. So that's the colour wheel. And that's the end of looking at the beam of the fixture. Now I'm going to take you through the actual fixture itself. Let's come down here. I'm using my phone now to get nice and close. Nice display, battery powered, so we can get to it nice and easily when the power's not on. Setup, we can do our DMX addressing, wireless because we have wireless DMX built in, and an Ethernet interface that takes streaming ACN and ArtNet. Options, we can change all of our dimming curves, fan modes and things. Now the fan modes are good. We can have a listen to this now. On auto mode, it will always try to choose the version which is most useful for that particular moment. Put it on silent mode. Did you hear it just turned off? Now we ran this for 2 minutes in silent mode and we didn't notice any appreciable downturn in the intensity. Normally this is where the fixture starts to overheat, but we didn't notice anything. Put it in theatre mode. Theatre mode is meant to be the quietest, but it will go a bit louder in a second. It will always prioritise the LED's temperature, but it will try to keep it quiet if it can. And then constant mode, you can hear it chugging away then. So, really, if you're in any normal situation, you'd have it on auto. But you can set all this from the profile on the desk. So you can actually say, well, it's a loud number, my light's doing lots of things, it's time to cool it down. So you can actually program it in to go loud during a loud number, cool it down while it's doing all its work, and then just as the song's finishing, knock it down to silent. So you're taking care of your light and you're trying to keep it nice and bright as well. PWM frequency, I mentioned at the beginning, you can set what the frequency is of the LEDs. Now, to the naked eye, you wouldn't be able to tell what this is. And we're not going to see it now because you have to dim the fixture to be able to tell. But this is the frequency that the dimming is run at. All the LEDs are constantly flickering, and that's how it manages its dimming curve. So yeah, lots of things there. Information, system errors, fixture hours, LED hours, system versions. You can actually see the DMX data coming in. Kind of helpful, very thoughtful. The fans monitor, what's the speed of the fans? LED fans are at 51% at the moment on auto. So it's just not having to work that hard, even though it's been on now for the last sort of 45 minutes. Network parameters, we can set all our networks. There we go, that's kind of it. It's running at 47 degrees. That's how we knew it wasn't getting hotter when we were running it. We put it into silent mode, and we can see it go up very, very slowly up to 51 degrees, but the temperature of the intensity of the LEDs didn't change at all. So, to conclude, what do I think of this really bright light? Well, I do like it. I like it a lot. One thing I haven't talked about in the review so far is the fact it's an IP66 product. What does IP66 mean that it's different from most manufacturers? Well, an IP65 product, which is what most fixtures are, it has to be waterproof. That means it can survive rainfall, it can survive splashes, but you wouldn't want it to be really subjected to heavy water. Most outdoor lighting fixtures are IP65, even street lights are often IP65. Yeah. IP66 is a layer above that. So in order to pass IP66, it has to go through really rigorous tests. They jet spray it for over 2 minutes with water, and there can't be any water ingress at all. There can't be anything smaller than sort of 5 microns that can get in through the fixture. Now, to be fair, water can't get into an IP65 fixture either, so you wonder why would you worry about IP66? It's not like you're going to put it in a lake.
although you almost could. Now, IP66 is really useful for dust, and that's not something that most people don't think about, and Clay Paky have. This fixture is so well sealed that you could put it in the middle of a desert and the sand won't get into it. You could put it in the top of a concert arena, fill it full of dust, fill it full of haze fluid, all that grease that comes out of all the people and all of your smoke machines. None of that will get into the optics and slowly deteriorate a light, both in terms of the quality of the beam and the operation of the mechanics of it as well. So that IP66 is actually this product's best USP, and it's something that you may not have appreciated unless you had it explained to you. I certainly didn't until Clay Paky explained to me exactly what IP66 means. And that was a conscious decision by them to go that extra mile to take it from IP65 to IP66 to make sure that it was really well built. The actual fixture, it's really compact. It weighs 37 kilos. I can lift it. I know the fixtures are slightly heavier. I can't lift on my own. And, you know, I lift weights in the gym, so I like to think I could lift a 37 kilo light. But because it's compact, the weight's really well centered, so I can get it underneath and lift it. And as long as I've got the two handles, I can squat down and pick it up and carry it by myself. And it is compact. It's very small. It's heavier than it looks because it is so small. It's got a magnesium alloy body, so it's really solid. There's no plastic on it. The whole thing's made of really high quality machined metal. Really good quality components inside, really powerful motors and magnets to drive those motors. So that's all heavy as well. But in order to get the power, they're heavy, but they're very small to make it compact. So you can see this thing going on. It's constantly fighting, try and make it small, make it reliable, make it compact, make it bright, make it powerful. It is a little mini machine gun, really. It's got everything you need in that. Some of the features that you'd get on some of its competitors, like having two rotating gobo wheels instead of one and a static, you know, you can live without some of those things. But it does have a couple of limitations if you're looking at it light for light on the spec sheet. And that's why videos like this, I hope, are really important and useful, because we can go into some of those other things that make, you know, the stuff that appears on the spec sheet slightly less relevant, and look further into things like the optics, which are just brilliant and beautiful. It is a fixture that you would do well having in your lighting rig if you were doing theatre, because it's got good framing shutters and it's got good light on people's faces. It creates a nice colour. It's not changing pigmentation too much of people's skin colour. It makes a great front of house unit. I'll put it on an advanced bar or out in the auditorium somewhere, and that will allow people to be lit from out front in a really nice way. It's not too big that it's going to get in the audience's way. It's not too heavy that it's going to be difficult to fly. It would also work over the stage as well. It's got, you know, the zoom range you need to be able to flood it out. And if you wanted to try using it in a big arena environment, that would still work because it is punchy enough for that. It's not as bright as its bigger brother or sister, which has more like 1,000 or 1,200 watt LED. Don't quote me. So it's almost twice as much power in terms of the LED's power. Maybe not the output from it, but yeah, at the level 700 watt this is at, you could use this almost anywhere. So I would recommend this as well for rental stock because it has such a wide variety of use cases. You could use it in all sorts of applications. You could have it on the back of a concert on a massive array of truss doing all of your in-air effects. You could have it on the floor as part of your floor packers because it's small, doesn't get in the way of cameras. You could have it in the studio where you've got to have complicated lighting that has to match a camera because you've got all of that fine control of the color temperature, of the CTO. You've got control of the PWM settings and all the frequencies to match your camera. So all of that stuff you've got in here. So great for that use case as well. Final thought then. What I really liked about Clay Paky most of all, beyond the actual fixture, was how open and flexible and humble the Italians were when I was speaking to them about their product. They love this product. You can tell they've put Italian passion into it. The whole range of fixtures, they really see it as something that will put Clay Paky firmly back in the UK market for sure, since they've had a very poor presence here in the last 4 or 5 years since the pandemic. But when you talk to both their retailers here in the UK, CP Wave, and the product designers in Italy, you really can tell that they will stand by this product. They're happy for us to test it any way we want. They want us to find all the flaws and tell you about them because they think we can't find any, and they're right. It's very hard to find a flaw in this product. And I just love that attitude. I love that that belief in their own product, that they made something that is so good and so special that they just want everyone to know about it. And that's why we're talking to you about it now. So thank you, Clay Paky, for letting me borrow it. Thank you, LSI, for letting me write about it in your magazine, LSI Online. And I look forward to telling you about the next products.